just wanted to allow some time for that to gain some appreciation. I've managed to get so bad at them that it's looped back around, and I'm now an idiot savant. There aren't many who have made it this far. All the fun times are over, and the game is now sticking to its core cast. I don't see why the shepherd would just wait at the top. If he can finish all this, why doesn't he just do it? Maybe he has, and it's just had no effect on us.
There are flaws in the system. I think sometimes it accesses the wrong databases, pulls random data. I don't know how bad it is. It all seems to be stable, but I can't tell what kind of impact this is going to have on the process, and I just don't have the strength to go over all of the code again. I just don't want it all to be for nothing. I spent all my time here. I didn't visit my parents. I didn't see my friends. I did nothing but work. And I'm so scared that it didn't mean anything. That I just wasted it all because I thought we could... we could save the world.
Not that it needs pointing out, but it is worth reiterating. At this point, Alex's co-workers, her friends, have begun to die, and she's working overtime. We have the benefit of hindsight, but who knows how this could have turned out. I've practiced boosting myself enough, I should know better by now. If you can stack the same box twice, don't let your confusion stop you. It's on its way to being an adage, but it's not there yet. Alex says she thinks that the system sometimes accesses the wrong databases, pulls random data, and that was happening from the start. So, theory 1, the ordering of the archive was always completely arbitrary, and nothing's changed at all. Aha, gotcha. A second possibility, the archive has formed a cohesive narrative and specific perspective on the world, but this has been based on the random data, so most of what we've read has never really existed. It's just been cobbled together and smoothed over time into something somewhat comprehensible. Third theory, the archive AI was already advanced enough at the time that Alex was making it to do all this intentionally, and it's all just part of the plan. So the Sacred Numbers log throws not only the numbers that we need, but a bunch of vaguely spiritual sounding words. Blessed Jerusalem, Adam resurrection, holy fire, rekindling. It feels like an arbitrary mash, sort of parodying the religious subtext to everything. I refuse to believe these combinations of words can be found outside of this text log. The second log file is the second to last Athena chapter, chapter 16, A Second Awakening in the Kingdom of Artemis. And yeah, that gate didn't open. This game is broken as heck. and the Artemis log is falling apart now. What it's trying to say is, now that I've been born in the image of Hephaestus, something I don't quite remember happening. Whoa. I really enjoy how this is pretty much the intended way down. So there's not much to the log. The final line is, "Who are you then?" they said.
Many ages have passed since the first words were spoken in the darkness. Initiate program. Generations of your kind have come and gone since those words. The garden has changed many times. But I remember. I remain. Only within me can you find immortality.
Nothing we don't already know, and Elohim is promising us he hasn't changed, honestly. So, as he says, many ages have passed, and just to finish my thoughts on the Artemis log, the chapter about questioning who you are if you are not the person whose image you were made from has become all corrupted. So that follows quite nicely. It's a question we're trying to find answers to ourselves, and there are no easy ones. Nothing to do but press on with this puzzle and hope we can make use of these things at the start later. Well, that investigation was short-lived. I decided to jump ahead a bit here since there was a lot of experimenting. I found it remarkably easy using the recording of yourself to just trap you inside the second half of this puzzle. Among other things, I need to make sure a clear path runs from the transmitter to me, but my double is never going to step back on that switch. He's happy just to stare idly through the bars, so I can see exactly the same expression I myself am wearing. At least now he's giving me a way out if I want one. But what I really need him to do is to go back and open both gates, since the connectors are already all set up. Just need to wait here and have a little trust. Oh no, I looked back, and in that moment Eurydice disappeared, and my recording failed me yet again. He's just over there, chilling. Wonder how he's passing the time. Never mind, good riddance. So here's this whole thing from the top and done right. Let's look at log 3. It's worth just reading out. It's called remember.txt. I don't know if anyone's ever going to read this, but if you do, if we succeeded, then I want you to know that Alexandra stayed until the last moment. I'm leaving, too tired, too broken, desperate for a few moments of peace with my remaining loved ones. But she's still there, and she won't give up. And yes, there are thousands like her all over the world, giving everything they have because they believe in humanity. But she's the one that I know as a real person, a colleague, a friend. I know that she likes peanut ice cream and hates strawberry, that her favourite band is Pink Floyd, explains a bit, that her favourite poet is Blake, explains a whole lot more, that her favourite TV show is Futurama, this bit's corrupted, studied at Cornell, that her dad's name was Carl, that her mum's name was... that's corrupted too. I don't know if I should be ashamed for leaving, but I know that I'm proud of her. She was the best of us. Remember her. The hidden text is the end of that Blake poem from before. I'll read the whole stanza out, because it doesn't make sense otherwise. God appears and God is light to those poor souls who dwell in night, but does a human form display to those who dwell in realms of day. She said it might be pulling random data, so it probably saw the word Blake and tried to fill in the gaps. Let me off this once, we've read enough into it already. 3 stars to get in here. Oh boy, we have to make up the difference somehow. Done. I've been speculating that for a while, but that's a really good way of saying it. The puzzles aren't before, but behind our eyes. You can probably guess what my first actions in this room will be. There's a lot of text to go through in this episode. I won't dwell on anything for too long, especially since the puzzles have reached a level of intricacy that's more fun to talk about. There'll always be downtime. The first one from this room is an email by Lubomir Georgiev, Lub to his friends, which is everyone. He's a really sociable guy. He's arranging a LAN party for the end of the universe. 2 days' time in the old school library. It sounds really well organised. I do think my ability to put effort into things like this would waver if the end of the world was coming. I stopped trying to break the puzzle at this point. It was just a minor diversion. Lub says, bring your friends too, especially if they're hot. I really hope he managed to keep his let's have some fun before we croak mentality up until the very end. His email seems a bit insecure. Whether he broke down almost immediately, got as drunk as possible because why the heck not, made it successfully through the party and then collapsed in a depressive heap back at home, or just had a great time with friends and met the end with a smile. We'll never know. Unless we get another log file. Yeah, it's one of these setups again. And this switch is the entirety of the goal. This opens the final barrier to the sigil. I am slightly guilty here of getting to work solving the puzzle without knowing the full scope of it. Okay, there's a horizontally aligned fan we need to activate. We're going to have to shift everything around so we can blow the box onto the switch. Sure, let me get right on that. Glad I spotted this from here, as the receiver is very hard to see from anywhere else. This was a neat concept for a puzzle, and the name Dumbwaiter fits very well, but I'm not sure what it would prove to show it off the intended way. If you give someone a problem with a pre-existing solution, and they find a solution that you hadn't intended, forcing them to do it your way is a bit megalomaniacal.
When the scale of it all overwhelms me, this is what I tell myself. We can calculate the age of the Earth, the size of the universe, the future of the stars. Sure, we are minuscule, momentary flashes of thought on a grain of sand drifting through the cosmos. But our minds can recreate the past and predict the future. On, say, Friday, 1,000,000 years from now, we'll all be dead. But right now, we know what the night sky will look like on that day. And so, in a way, we're not entirely bound by time. Knowledge is a kind of freedom.
There's quite a lot to that voice log. Before we could predict the night sky 1,000,000 years from now, humans made exactly the same argument about their timelessness, except replaced with their communion with God or gods. The whole immortality through notoriety thing, I think, has always existed, in one form or another. And I agree that knowledge is a freedom in one's day-to-day life. And if you expand that knowledge to encompass many powers times your own lifespan, you can pretty much say, okay, I roughly know what this universe is going to be like a million years from now. I'm happy to leave it to its thing and get on with my own life. It's like visiting a foreign country for a week, taking a few photos, barely grazing the surface of the culture. But it's enough. I know it's here, I know it's getting on alright. Now I'm going back home. I've managed to conclude I need one more connector before I can do anything meaningful over here. Fortunately I do have that recorder, but is it enough? Yeah, take that, Samsara. Once again, the attention to detail is brilliant. So Nephthys is an Egyptian goddess, heavily involved in funerary rites, and one half of those trapezoid gates we saw all over the place. She's a protector, a necessary companion, who can assist souls through the duat. So unlike Samsara, who's all about continuing and recycling, she is all about finality and closure. I do keep sort of doing these in the wrong order. If you leave the components where the recorded components are supposed to go, then you can move them about once the recording is finished. Doing it this way feels a bit backwards. I'm weirdly fond of the downtime these puzzles sometimes require. The second log file then is from Nadia, so I'm not sure about the chronology of all this. The EL project has reached the stage that most projects do. All the major stuff is in place, but there's a million tiny things that aren't quite there. Everything's extremely crude. Again, it sounds like the writers are, fortunately, needlessly saying that if the game isn't very good, then it's intentional. And I just caught that. Didn't think that through properly. There's an impressive business as usual to the email as well. The team is down to half its original size. They're not sure they can actually finish everything, so tomorrow they'll discuss a new set of priorities. And there's a PS telling Alex to get some sleep. I can sympathise. I find sleep wasteful as it is, and I'm not trying to summarise our species for posterity. The stereo sound is fine, but I'm not really picking up where these beeps are coming from. I need a bit of static, help me pinpoint the location. So has Samsara jumped to a conclusion here? Or are we the only other ones who can remember all our lives? I barely want to acknowledge that it was that easy, but it still makes the reward centers of my brain light right up. I really do like the point that the next log file makes. I'm tripping over myself to fit all these words in. So let's introduce a whole bunch more, and maybe they'll roll over. So ignoring that terminal for now and jumping ahead past I don't know what, the third log file, titled Philosophy of Teeth, makes the argument that anyone who would like to write about philosophy to make some kind of grand statement about the nature of the body and the soul should experience a really bad tooth infection, one where the nerve itself is really badly infected. The logic goes that since the pain is so unimaginably bad, nearly blotting out your very consciousness, drowning out everything else about you, and then is so easily fixed. A few chemicals, a drill and a cut. The log file doesn't extrapolate, but I imagine the point is that it gives you perspective on exactly how fragile your consciousness is. I'm having the best time up here. I'd say it's mostly about not taking your ability to have thoughts for granted. Much of philosophy is, why do we have these thoughts? So taking them away, however briefly, should have a major impact on how you view the world. And I agree, I occasionally suffer from migraines, and just over a month ago, I think, I had something that went way beyond anything I'd ever felt before. Usually it's locational. This part of my head is in screeching agony. Blot out as much light as you can, and I'll come back to you when it's better. But this was just pain. I didn't have a head. I stayed up all night, I don't remember. I threw up, it barely registered. I wonder whether I could have backpedaled enough to avoid the blast radius there. It was kind of inevitable. Anyway, after that migraine, I was out of commission for a few days. The event itself lasted just over a day. And I didn't regret the pain. It really did feel like an experience worth having, even if that was my rosy hindsight talking. Because now I know what I can lose. Maybe not as much as I could have. I don't take very much for granted. But the range of motion that I have, I'm endlessly pleased by. And if that went away, don't really feel like I can compare them. Anyway, the log rounds off by saying, we should call this the two-thos principle, but that's incredibly stupid. For what it's worth, I agree, if the intention was for it to be taken seriously. I'm sort of curiously bewildered by this sort of mechanics-based puzzle inside the larger logic puzzle. It relies on you being able to pick up a jammer from atop two boxes, but not from atop a box on top of an explosive device. Which is arbitrary, but I think the latter wouldn't end well in any case. The first log file from that second terminal is called Transcendence, and I kind of want to gloss over it a bit. Its responses to the question of science and atheism. Dr. Omar Gharib, the project lead for the Link software, agrees with most of the arguments against religion, and yet he is himself religious. And I think I've touched on this before, and if not, I'm probably preaching to the choir, or lecturing to the experts. But you can both be a person of science and a person of faith. It doesn't feel like it's a thing that can be told outright, but rather decided for yourself. Dr. Gharib does say that it's not about believing certain things, but it's about reaching out to the sublime, a way of approaching experiences that can't be done in a scientific way. And at the end he states that, just like science, it's about transcending culture, nationality and gender, an amorphous link to the ethereal that anyone can partake. A question on my mind is it more likely that a child raised religiously will find science later on, and accept both, or begin with a knowledge of science and find religion later? Again, while not downright mechanics-based, like that thing with the jammer at the start was, this is a combination of items we've never used like this before. I'm really impressed with the versatility. The solution's pretty ingenious, without being at all opaque. Until you go back and realise it's just barely not clearing the fence, and you've got to slip an extra box in, at which point it's become busy work. The 8th text log we've seen today is a bottomless pit of theorization. It's about the nature of matter. It starts off by talking about philosophical notions where time and space are categories of our minds, that they're required by our thinking, but nothing actually corresponds to them in reality. Hang on a sec while I make this awesome swap. And I certainly saw this fan blowing over here. Looks like all the effort we just did was to avoid having to go down this channel, but needs must. I'm sure this fragile crystal will serve me well as a shield if it comes to that. Some more star attempts, back to the space-time. So Kant was quite influential here, saying space is a distance between objects and time a measurement between events that are only necessary for our experiences to make sense, but also exist empirically as actual objects themselves. And you very quickly run into trouble. J.M.E. McTaggart argued that since any moment in time could be described as past, present and future, depending on where you are when you look at it, it's circular and contradictory, and they don't necessarily involve change. June 2015 will always be after May 2015, and it's important to pin down to make a lot of other things make sense. That's what relativity is about. Physics is the same for all observers, and light propagates at the same speed regardless of your frame of reference. Prior to that, it was the luminiferous ether, which was a medium through which the Earth moved, carrying the light, and so the speed of light was relative to this fixed medium. And then you end up with thought experiments, such as Gottfried Leibniz's multiple universes, one of which is 5 feet to the left of the other. And Samuel Clarke, Isaac Newton's spokesman, talking about water spinning in a bucket that is spinning itself, and that was spinning. In both cases the water's still spinning, it's no longer in relation to the bucket, so it must be a third thing. Here's where the text log chips in again, saying that if one of these philosophers arrived 2 minutes late to a 9 p.m. train and saw it departing, they'd be convinced by their own eyes that time and space are inseparable from material reality. So then Einstein came along and laid down some theories we're still relatively happy about. Haha. That could have ended in tears and debris. But fortunately the log isn't talking about the theories themselves. It's saying, why are we discussing what space-time means to us? Because we want to control it, we want to subject matter to man, since it constitutes the foundation of not only everything that really exists, but also all of imagination. If we could control it, we could diminish space, overcome it, economize time, prolong human life, all very relevant themes. The log itself is attributed to Bronstein, and all the internet will tell me is that he was a chess grandmaster. I can't find any reference to the words themselves, so it's probably an original bit of text. And that's all we've got time for. See you later.